beautiful, don't you think?
What?
The sunrise.
Terrific.
Gravity! Dun, 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 dun. Wait. No, it's battery. Okay, no. Yeah, I'm talking about gravity. Alright. Anyways, yes, you are listening to a review with just me, Brandon. Yes, that's right. I don't have time to do a written one, so I must do an audio review of the newest thing, one of the newer things to come out to Redbox is Gravity. Gravity, this is one of the, this is the Academy gushing over this fucking movie for, they gave it like over 6 awards or some bullshit. It was ridiculous. And I'm gonna be the guy right now to say, no, it does not live up to that hype. Like, one of the awards that I knew that I say no to was visual effects. Yes, the visual effects are great in this movie, but not as good as, say, they were in Star Trek or even The Hobbit, honestly. But, yeah, it beat out 2 movies where I'm just like, no, the visual effects in Link movie was better than Gravity. But we're not talking about those other movies, we're talking about Gravity. Gravity. This movie is your typical survival movie. If you listen to Movie Thing Podcast, you already kind of heard me describe this movie a little bit. I'm going to try to get a little bit more in depth now than I was in that one. But, I may be going over the same points, but this time you'll get a little nice rating at the end of that. But anyways, yes, Gravity. You get to, it's a survival movie. We've seen survival movies done a bunch. You've seen it. Like, I think that movie, it was called Open Water, where the 2 people are stranded out in sea and they had to survive out in sea. They weren't really, basically it was just them floating out there, really, and nothing special with them. But, except for you get 2 characters that are pretty much likable. You have George Clooney, who is playing Matt, just an actual astronaut. He's Matt. And then you get Sandra Bullock playing Ryan Stone. Yes, she is a woman named Ryan. I always thought that was strange. But she is a scientist. She's not really an astronaut, but she's a scientist who is going up there to, honestly, their mission was never really clear on what the hell they were doing. But you get to know these characters a little bit. You get to know a lot more about Sandra Bullock. George Clooney, he is literally just George Clooney. He's charming, he's funny, you just kind of, you just like him every time he's on screen. You're just like, yes, this guy, I like this. But, yeah, it's a survival movie, the Russians, for unseeable reasons, blew up one of their satellites. And then the debris is just orbiting around Earth, just destroying everything in its path. I want to see the spin-off movie, guys, of this, where the guy he gets his, gets his dish cable, then all of a sudden just doesn't work, he flips out, and it turns into Postal. No. But, yeah, sorry, right now I gotta really sneeze. And it's gone. Alright, good. No one wants to hear me sneezing on the webs. But yeah, the movie is basically, that's them floating out in space. Some people have criticized this because a lot of the time you're hearing Sandra Bullock, screaming, not really screaming, but just breathing heavily. And I say that really emphasized the whole, one of the biggest dangers of space of lack of oxygen, because the whole time, when she's going, she's burned up her oxygen. So I really I disagree with people saying, and it's really not that bad. I will say, though, I dig what the director does with this movie on how he uses the first-person camera a lot. So, you'll actually get to see things through the eyes of Sandra Bullock, and that really just kind of makes me, that right there is just it's just awesome because you get to see their hand. It really, honestly, it sort of felt like the latest Call of Duty game, to be honest with you, when they're in space and you get to see first-person hands and shit. It was quite interesting. And they do make it exciting. They do make this film exciting. Normally I want to just reiterate this. Normally I talk about plot a little bit, but literally the plot is just Sandra Bullock trying to survive in space. She's trying to get home, trying to get back down to Earth, and going through the obstacles doing that. The movie, I say it's exciting with the explosions, and you really don't know where this movie's going to end up. I do have to say though, how this movie ends kind of disappointed me in some way, where I thought that they could have ended it one way, and I would have been happy with that ending, because they seem like they're like about towards the last act of the film, they seem like they end the movie, and you're like, oh shit, wow, that's how they're really gonna end this. No, they add a few more to, really give her something going. I was like, you guys had such a powerful scene here. You should have ended on it. Instead, you have to have like this. You gotta have this. I don't want to spoil the ending, but I did not care for the end of this film. Real quick, acting wise, Ed Harris is in this movie, but he has such a small role, and you recognize his voice the moment you hear it. He is the mission control guy. He's the main guy you hear from the. From Earth. He's the only guy you hear from Earth, really. And you hear him, and it just makes me happy. I was like, there's Ed Harris. He has such a small role. His character doesn't get a name. His name is Mission Control in the IMDb list. That makes me laugh. Yeah, so this movie was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Yeah, he's more of a writer. Let's go with his directing. He directed Children of Men, which I really dig that movie. It's a really good take on a dystopian future where, people can't have kids. And that's about it. Like, that's his whole directing thing that's worth a damn. Gravity is his other one. I think he does a good job, like I said. I really like his camera techniques, and I do dig the visual effects he does in this. How the characters are, I think they really flesh out Sandra Bullock, which the movie really centralizes around her, which it should. They flesh her out to a point, but she never becomes a likable character, to be honest with you. I never found myself really giving a shit about her. I just yes, I get to know more about her backstory, but I'm just like, you know what? You seem like you're kind of a bitch. I'm not gonna lie. She did not seem like the most pleasant person. I would have rather seen the whole movie be more centralized around George Clooney's character, the Matt guy, over her, because Matt at least seems like he tries to flesh himself out using jokes a lot. But, he was just way more likable of a character, and he was meant to be, and she was meant to be kind of more of a stick up her ass kind of character. But it's still kind of just like, I don't know. Wasn't really a fan of that. This movie is also written by the Alfonso man, and he has written basically the same things. He's directed, he wrote the screenplay of, Children of Men. That's literally, I don't know his work too well. I think he does a fine job, but I just, this movie didn't hit me. It didn't hit, and I think this is going to be with a lot of people. A lot of people are not going to come out of this movie thinking, oh my god, this was worth all the hype. This is worth everyone talking about. Maybe it was just the hype that killed me with it, but I didn't care for the ending. I didn't care for the character that the movie was based off of. Visual effects and how the story plays out. Very interesting. It keeps you interested the whole time. You're just like, I really want to know what is going to happen. But it just, I don't know. It does it's really hard to explain this. Now, I did hear about this astronaut who was heckling a theater. Oh, no, this shit's real and all that. He was kind of giving them all shit and, pointing out all the flaws with this. But this is probably the most realistic space thing we've probably seen in a while. It's way more realistic than, Armageddon was. Yeah, I'll give them that. And it also does the wonderful thing of there really is no sound in space, and I can't believe this is like the first movie has done that. Like, oh yeah, the ship's exploding, but there's not going to be an explosion. It's just going to fall apart, and then you might hear, or the only time you hear is her going boom, boom when she's hitting up against space station that's falling apart or whatever. So I dig that from just for it being the first realistic part of the whole thing, but yeah. Other than that, I don't really know what else to add. I don't really, the writing was fun. You really do get to know about the characters, and there was one scene in this movie where I thought it was the end that was just so great that I was so happy with it, and it would have been I would have given it a higher rating if it stuck with that. And I know that's just me being a stickler saying you didn't make the movie I wanted, but it kind of is. Anyways, that is it. I'm gonna give this isn't a bad movie, but it's not an amazing movie. I have no reason to ever go back and see this movie again. This is really one of those things where I'd say if you rent it on the Redbox, this will be a perfect thing for you to decide for yourself if you would like to see this movie. This is not a must-have in your collection. This isn't a must-see in theater when it was still out, of course. This is something that may have been interesting to see on the big screen, but besides that, no. Just a good old rental. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's not a terrible movie, but nothing to write home about. So that is it. Let me know what you think about this movie, and whether or not you disagree with me. I would love to know. I'd love to hear from you guys. That is it, everybody. Have a good night.